Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion coming to you on Constitution Day. That's right, September 17th, 1787 was the day that the Constitution was ratified by enough of the original states for it to go into effect. I think it is absolutely vital this year that I and hopefully you celebrate Constitution Day, which actually begins Constitution Week, because y'all, the Constitution is severely under attack, under pressure, in crisis here in the US. I'll explain some more and also give you some things to watch, to listen to read on this Constitution Day. Let's, though, begin as we always begin here at Uncommon Communion by recognizing, realizing, celebrating, and affirming that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So, have you heard? The First Amendment is under attack. Yesterday, you probably saw in the news that Attorney General Pam Bondi, yes, the Attorney General, was railing about hate speech and wanting to persecute those, of course, on the left who are doing what she would call hate speech. Now, the backlash against this, fortunately, was huge because there is no prohibition in the Constitution and there is nothing in the First Amendment that talks about hate speech, at least officially, as a type of unprotected speech, right? I'm going to read the First Amendment to you here in just a second, but I want you to consider the severity of this, y'all, and recognize that speech can be vile, speech can be horrible, speech can be disgusting, but yet Americans have a right to say it with some conditions, but only very few. And I'll read those here in a moment. I'm also going to suggest that you look at a short little video that Adam Kinzinger, who is one of my heroes, former Republican, he was on the January 6th committee and has really gone on to do some, I think, powerful, important work on Substack and elsewhere in our current crisis situation. And he records a little video on the First Amendment. I'm going to put a link to it, recommend that you watch it. I also recommend on this Constitution Day that you read something about the Constitution. A great place to start is with this book, which I have referred to before, put a link to it also in the chat. And it is a great interpretation. It's a few years old, though, I think 3 or 4 years old, maybe a little bit older. And therefore, it's outdated because our Constitution, since T-Rump took over again, is absolutely been under attack in the bullseye of the co-presidents, and we got to call them co-presidents, y'all, Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt, the two people that are truly running this country right now. Is T-Rump builds his ballroom and goes off and has carriage rides in the United Kingdom, pretending like he is a king. So, y'all, it is absolutely vital that we understand the Constitution and especially the First Amendment. And here is how it reads. And then I'm going to read a little bit of the commentary on that this gentleman, the author of this book, gives on it. First Amendment, Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, religion, it's referring to, semicolon, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, semicolon, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that's it, y'all. It's not super long. It has been interpreted over time by the Supreme Court. And here is what the author, again, I'll show you this cover one more time. It is Ben Sheehan. What he says about this. He says, since 1791, the Supreme Court has decided the amendment doesn't shield things like inciting violence or harmful situations. And that's the falsely yelling fire in a theater, right? That's, pretty well known. Slander does not protect against slander, which is defamatory speech. Libel, defamatory writing or imagery. Obscenity, which is vague. Child pornography, which is pretty specific. False advertising, intellectual property violations of copyrights, trademarks, patents, and more. Now, I don't know how much and more there is. I think he covers it pretty well in that little paragraph. He does go on to say in a second paragraph, he says, when it comes to free speech, he says, the First Amendment does not apply to private companies or individuals. When it comes to free speech and free press, companies like Facebook, Alphabet, YouTube, Google, Twitter, and Snapchat are not bound by the First Amendment. If they want to limit speech on their platforms, they can, and they do. So important to remember that, y'all, that free speech in the public realm, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of speech, is protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. And all of this garbage, all this rhetoric that we've heard over just the last couple of days is counter to that. I'm not even going to get into the whole fact that it's really the right wing and MAGA that does way more of the inciting, just the incendiary nature, the acceleration of all of this. I'm not going to get into that. Just sticking to the absolute fact, not opinion, that there is no category as hate speech, and we have the freedom of speech, period. I want to end by sharing a little bit about something remarkable that I watched today that just brought a smile and a bit of a laugh, and also is so indicative of the lack of awareness, the lack of irony, the lack of just a lot of insight in certain people. So I'm going to put a video to it. It's a really cool group of folks, a pair of folks that do something called Gen XY, and they do a live stream, a little kind of talk show, if you will, each morning. And when I'm in my office, like I was today, I watch. And today was remarkable because they were talking with a friend in DC, streaming live, who was on the mall in DC. And it was very deserted. And they were talking about, how it's, it's unusual, it's so quiet and so forth. And then in the background, remarkably, she, who's the commentator, right, who's live streaming, notes that there's a group of individuals, it looked like it was young men, who were putting up some kind of a statue right there on the mall with the Washington Monument in the background. And at first it was unclear. She didn't want to approach. As she got closer, she noticed that it is a gold statue, probably maybe 8 or 10 feet high. It looks like it's fairly large when you see it unveiled, of T-Rump holding a giant Bitcoin. And initially, so she's live streaming. She's talking to the two hosts of this live stream, this podcast, right? And at first, the three of them are thinking, hey, this is a protest against T-Rump. He's the most corrupt president ever. He has enriched himself like ridiculous amounts, like $2 billion since he became president the second time. He was asked about that by an Australian journalist yesterday, and he got into a tizzy and I mean, all that stuff. So what it seems like it might be this protest, anti-T-Rump, right? Well, guess what, y'all? It wasn't. It wasn't. I hate to kind of spoil the punchline. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat if you want to watch this. It's about 10 minutes, and I'll show you where in the video you can, get to it directly. But it is amazing because turns out that with a little bit of sleuthing, the hosts and the woman that is streaming, based on a hashtag that the people are putting up with this statue, it is actually a tribute to T. Rump, and it is being placed there by students or an organization related to Liberty University, which is the ultra conservative, fundamentalist, evangelical university in the South that I think it was Jerry Falwell's university, Liberty University. So that is amazing. And I'll end with this thought because it is a golden calf. It is a golden calf in the shape of Donald Trump. And the hosts were pretty, flabbergasted by this, but it's so true. It is absolutely so true. And where's the irony? Where's the recognition by these folks who know their Bible, who are Christians? I will put that in quotation marks. So-called Christians who call themselves Christians, who definitely know the Bible story of the golden calf, and also know how Moses in that story comes down off the mountain, finds the people worshiping this idol, this golden idol, golden statue, and literally smashes the tablets of the Ten Commandments on the idol, and then punishes the people. The Bible text, and this is something that definitely doesn't show up in the children's Bibles, the Bible text says that God tells Moses to melt the statue down, and then the people who are guilty of this idolatry are to drink this mix of melted gold and other, others, whatever's in it, and that is going to be their punishment. So, yeah, it is quite something, y'all. It just is remarkable that we have crossed this point where certain folks, and this is on, and there's definitely liberals, people on the left that are completely unself-aware. I get that, right? But where folks on the MAGA right have no sense of irony, no sense that by doing something that they think is a tribute is really a self-satire. They are satirizing themselves. And wow. Wow. All right. So I need a good laugh today. I hope you do celebrate Constitution Day. Again, I'll have some stuff in the notes. Please look them up. Please read it. Please listen. I'm going to add a bonus little song and a link to a Wikipedia page about the history of Constitution Day. It used to be called Citizenship Day, and it really got rolling based on a song that it came out in 1940, and I'll link to it if you're interested in hearing. It's called I Am an American, and predates, all the other American songs that, we have in the popular culture. So let's close as we often close by recognizing and realizing our own limitations, but also knowing that there is much that we can do personally, politically, collectively, as followers on the way of Christ, as planetary pilgrims, and if you are like me, as citizens of the United States of America on this Constitution Day. So pray with me, if you will, in the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, not ours, be done. Amen. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. Blessing and good. Be bold. Be well.